Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. I'm professional sports handicapper Ross Benjamin of rbwins.com. And like every Thursday, I'm joined by that handsome fella on the other side of me, Mr. Doug Upstone of docsports.com. And we're going to be giving you guys a couple Major League Baseball free pick winners for Friday, June the 17th. But before we get to that, Doug, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Ross, and it's a little bit different reason this time around. Okay, now I'm going to just raise myself ever so slightly so everybody can see this. Is that you'll notice there's an ND on that shirt right there, and it doesn't stand for North Dakota. It stands for the team that's going to the College World Series.
How about that?
And then the upset of Tennessee taking 2 out of 3 in Knoxville.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
That's the number one team in the country, right?
Yeah, and a decided number one team. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, going into the super regionals, their odds were actually minus to win the College World Series. I want to say minus 200, but I could be off on that. I know I saw that at some point, but
which
so
is extremely
so
high.
Overwhelming favorites.
Yeah, that's you don't get that when it comes to look, they were minus 200 and they hadn't even got to the College World Series yet,
right?
Which is astronomical odds in terms of a favorite. Let's put it
that way. We're looking at at the time 16 teams still left, and then going down to 8. So and then now the odds because the thing was that once it was announced or once they lost, the thought was it's going to be wide open. Well, I looked at the odds the other day. 4 teams are at either minus 400 or minus 450, or sorry, plus 400 or plus 450 to win it, and then the next team is plus 500.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is wide open. So it should be a lot of fun. It's one of always my favorite events to try and watch and stuff like that. And I've had a good friend of mine that has been went last year, as a matter of fact. And so that's one of my things that I want to do. Probably not gonna do it when I'm doing this, but down the road, get there and it's a lot of fun. Watch a lot of great baseball from highly competitive, a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's you could bet on these games. I mean, you just have to find the right sports book, but
yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of people now there's a lot more people taking college basketball or college baseball action, even during the regular season. Not all of them, but some of them, some of the more prominent teams. And then, but yeah, once you get to the super regionals in particular, like last weekend, all those games have lines.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So interesting. I mean, I always find myself, being from a cold weather climate and being a baseball player growing up, I always find myself squeezing for these college teams that come from quote unquote cold weather climates. Right. And, Notre Dame being one of them. And then we had UConn take Stanford, number 2 Stanford right down to the wire, losing in 3 games in that super regional. And I recall Kent State making it to the college baseball World Series a few years back. Michigan also. How about Stony Brook in the same year that Kent State got there? So a small school out of the metropolitan New York area. So anyway, it should be interesting, a lot of fun to watch. And at this time of year, if you're a sports fan, you're really searching hard for things to watch. Hey, speaking of your interest, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals got underway last night, and what a thrilling game! If that's any indication of what kind of finals this is going to be, boy oh boy, we're in store for a beauty. As Colorado wins 4-3 in overtime. Tampa Bay got off to a slow start. Vasilevsky allowing a couple goals he normally wouldn't on normal occasions. But that happens when you have a long layoff like Tampa Bay had going into that series. But boy, oh boy, the Lightning found their legs and they gave Colorado all they could handle on the road before succumbing in overtime.
Yeah, it was a, like you said, it was a really good game. And I was a little bit surprised. Actually, in this case, Ross, it was Colorado had the long layoff.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yep. The series before, when the Tampa Bay played Rangers, it was 9, both of them end up having 9 days off. And I thought that would be a factor in the game. And as it turns out, it wasn't. So game 2 will be fascinating. My thought, just in general, was that for the first 4 games, doesn't seem like the differences between the teams is going to be that great. There's more speed and more scoring prowess from Colorado. At the same time, there's more defense and what should be better goaltending coming from Tampa Bay. So that sets up. So like the road teams to me, offer some value. And of course, Ross, it was overtime. So I was on the road team yesterday. So nothing new there from that standpoint.
Oh boy, I saw one of your videos earlier this week where I'm a little bit angry. Yes, I lost an extra innings, and I know people think I whine about it, but
and I do. I'm the first to admit it. But when you've had this, I've lost 8 of my last 12 games that have gone beyond regulation, and that's just to put the golf vernacular. It's par for the course.
Yeah, it really hurts when you have the underdog like you had yesterday, and lose that game because. Basically you're right there. You're probably that's probably a very good bet, and bouncing a puck once in a while is a difference in overtime. So
yeah. I mean, it's just how that goes. Now, speaking of things that can make somebody crazy, if I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, okay, I would be beside myself. This team is scoring. What is it?
They're not
last
scoring.
in scoring. Yes, yeah, 2 I think it's 2.7 runs per game.
2.7 runs per game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yesterday shut out 13-0 by the White Sox. And it's like, I understand that, the game of baseball has changed, Ross, and everybody's, exit velocity and all this other stuff to hit the ball. But you know what? Sometimes it doesn't hurt just to put the bat on the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you know what? Something might actually happen if you do. Like, not everyone's going to be an out. Maybe somebody makes an error. And I'll tell you how bad Detroit is offensively. Okay. Is that 2.7 runs per game. If the next worst team is Kansas City at 3.3. All right. So they're 29th. So if you take that number, and I'm not going to have the exact figure here on it, but I'm going to be pretty close. If you take that now over 60, everybody's played, let's say, roughly 62 games. Okay. The difference between the average of the in baseball right now, which is 4.2 runs per game. That's the mean average for the teams. So if you take that 2.7, that's a run and a half per game. So over 60 plus games, you're talking of the Detroit is minus 90 plus runs just to this point of the season against an average team, let alone the Dodgers, San Diego, Boston, some of these other teams that are scoring more, Yankees, all those teams. I mean, it's just unfathomable that they could go up there and just continue to do the same thing, especially when they have Cabrera. Okay.
And he's still hitting, he can still hit.
He hits the ball to right center field, as he always has throughout his career. He can pull it anytime he wants to. But you know what? Go up there and hit the ball. Try and hit the ball. And I'm not saying they're not trying, but the approach is just so poor. And we watch
non-aggressive. Yeah.
It just you're swinging out of your shoes. You're trying to get loft to the ball. Just hit it. You know what? You start winning some games. Now, from our standpoint, it's actually good. I have to admit. Who doesn't want to play against Detroit, okay, on a regular basis?
Or play Detroit under. I mean, I think they might have even taken the lead from the Houston Astros, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the over-under ratios.
Yeah.
With the under being on the high side.
It's silly to watch teams do this and just to keep beating their heads, against the wall for no apparent reason. Okay. Because it's solvable. So to me, the hitting coach, adios,
I mean, you can't do much worse than what they're doing right now. It's actually embarrassing. And not only 2.7 runs per game on the season, 1.9 runs per game scored over their last 7 outings. So it's not like things are progressing. It's regressing, if anything. One guy to keep an eye on for the Tigers, I would say, especially when it comes to betting over and unders, is Tariq Skubal, their left-hander. He's gone 7-5 in his team starts this year with a really good ERA of under 3. He's been especially good at home, and he gets a start tomorrow for the Tigers. But something to keep an eye on. He is coming off a rough outing in his last start, 4 earned runs in 4 innings. But overall, he's been a real shining light for Detroit on a season which there's not a lot of shining light to be had.
Yeah, and it's too bad. For example, like I like that Casey
Nice. Yep.
you know, and he's out. You know, he's gone for the season. You know, and I mean, most of these guys come back from from these different injuries today. You know, and stuff like that. But it's not always guaranteed though, and they don't always come back the same guy either. So that's when you're trying to rebuild, which is obviously what Detroit's trying to do, and kind of was structured more around pitching and defense. Supposed to be this year. And they played pretty well in the second half of last season. Granted, there was no pressure whatsoever. There was no expectations. And, so there was let's just say, I think we both agree there was some minor expectations that they could flirt, with an 80-win season or so this year. But, I mean, there's not a chance in heck with the way they're
not
hitting.
The way their lack of hitting is just, it's more conducive to 110 losses than it is to 80
Right.
wins. And on top of that, their pitching, especially their bullpen, has been good in spots. After a while, you have to contribute a little bit offensively. You have to mix in an 8-7 win on occasion, Doug.
I'm sorry, just to your other point, if the pitching is even sort of good, is that because you don't score, these pitchers then develop the mentality they have to be perfect.
Yes.
And anytime you have to be perfect, you start making mistakes, or you feel like you have to be perfect, you start making mistakes. And that's where, the 3-run homer comes into play. You walk the leadoff batter.
You're behind hitters constantly. Yes. Because you're trying to nitpick and hit the corners, the black, as I call it. So, that's a very good point, Doug. I'll tell you, one team that's not having a problem hitting or pitching is the New York Yankees. They won again last night, 4-3 over Tampa Bay, and marked their 13th straight home win. I think their 6th win in a row overall. And the starting pitching has been great. And even though Aroldis Chapman has gone down over the last couple of weeks, boy, oh boy, what a nice job by these kids in the bullpen. Holmes and Michael King and Wandy Peralta and that cast of characters, as their bullpen's been excellent and timely hitting. Not a team that hits for an average, but certainly a ton of power, starting with Aaron Judge, Mike Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton. Doug, the New York Yankees are a real story thus far at 46-16.
Yeah, and that Clay Holmes, their closer now.
Yes.
Oh my! I mean, I've seen this guy pitch now. Probably, well, actually, if I happen to be watching different games and the Yankees are in that situation, I actually purposely turn their game on just so I can see him pitch. If it looks like he's going to pitch, I mean, he's devastating. Okay, his ERA is 0.29. I mean, he doesn't walk guys. Like I said, as you know, because you watch more of their games, but I mean, the movement on his pitches, all of them, is just breathtaking. Yeah. And then when he throws that, sinker, when he throws the sinker, and just the heavy break that it has. I mean, these guys just, it's like, well, I've mentioned this before. I hate to bring up cliches, but it's like trying to hit a bowling ball. I mean, it's just really tough. So yeah, they're an outstanding team. They have that pinstripe confidence back again, and then they're also other than Joey Gallo, who is obviously he just doesn't fit in that New York mentality. But Matt Carpenter walks into the clubhouse and all he does is hit home runs when he's basically he's not going to hit for average anymore. He's past his prime to do that. But it's just amazing to see once again putting on that uniform how certain guys just blossom.
Yeah, I mean, that short right field porch, it's almost like that stadium is suited for Matt Carpenter. 7 home runs already, and I believe like 11 games he's played, somewhere in that area. Not a lot, let's put it this way, a very high home run to games played ratio. You're absolutely right. And boy, oh boy, Boston is, I believe, when I was watching last night's telecast, Michael Kay had mentioned Boston is now 19-7 over
Yeah.
their last 26 games, which is the best in baseball during that time. But guess what? They've only gained a half a game on the Yankees over that course of time. How frustrating is that? Tampa Bay now 11 games back. And boy, Doug, I look at the Rays and they just don't seem as imposing as they have in the last couple of years, especially, I mean, their pitching is still top notch. But in terms of their lineup, a lot of guys are not producing in that lineup. Some losses via free agency. And, again, it's not the Detroit Tigers by any stretch of the imagination in terms of hitting, but they certainly struggle offensively at times.
Well, and what it seems like, especially if you compare it to the year that, they went to the World Series and really had an opportunity to win it, is that all of those players that are still from that team, not really anybody has gotten better.
No.
And if anything, they've leveled off.
They regressed or leveled
Right.
off, right?
And the thing was, at the time, we all thought, geez, I mean, here's these no-name players, that are doing great, and we were all impressed. Well, that's Tampa baseball. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I don't know that the Tampa Bay, I mean, they're still winning,
Yeah.
but how they've won previously, I don't know that this organization is as strong as it used to be. For example, there was always a one guy after the other, and they have some guys. I'm not saying this, but there was always a bunch of arms in the bullpen that threw 95, they threw 98. They had starters. Maybe only went 5 innings, but they were very effective. Had some different skill sets. Everybody was basically 6'6" or 6'5", about 210 pounds. They just had that Tampa look, and you don't see that as much with them anymore.
No.
And so it's just their dynamics have changed. Their farm system doesn't seem to be as good as what it was, let's just say 5-7 years ago. So I'm curious to see, the direction. I mean, they're still winning games. They still do a lot of things right. I mean, they are smarter than, how they play the game than some other teams. But, I'm just not, you just don't have the same feeling of a few years ago with them.
No, I get that. And I'm starting to believe when you mentioned some of the same players who are there now that were there when they went to the World Series, you start to wonder, is a few of these guys, were they going through career years at that particular moment in time? Because like you said, Doug, their numbers have evened off or regressed since then in several instances. Anyway, the NBA playoffs almost coming into an end here as Boston finds himself on a brink of elimination. We are taping on Thursday the 16th for Friday the 17th, but as of right now, Game 6 has not been played. And as of right now, the Boston Celtics are now a 4-point favorite in Game 6 over Golden State. Boy, oh boy, Boston 2-1 series lead, had a chance to put a stranglehold on that series, a 5-point halftime lead in Game 4. And they let Golden State off the hook, and now they find themselves on the brink of elimination. And some would argue that's exactly where they want to be because they're 3-0 so far this postseason on the brink of elimination.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, maybe some people think that. I guess I wouldn't want to be in that position,
No.
from that standpoint. And two things that stand out, okay, is just that the vast amount of turnovers that they are making is just incredible. I mean, in other series, they would maybe
just careless.
1 out of 3 games.
It's some. I mean, yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, Golden State has pressured their guards. But by the same token, there's a lot of unforced errors in there that you can't make at this time of year. In an NBA finals, it's just careless basketball at times.
Yeah, well, and this happens with every NBA team, though. But with all this spacing, okay, is that the unwillingness in some cases to take an open 10-foot shot in order to pass the ball to somebody across the court who may or may not be open, or at least by your peripheral vision, they appear to be open. And you pass the ball to them thinking they're going to get a wide open 3. And it's just, I don't know. It just,
no, I agree. I
Yeah, it's
agree.
when you become that too dependent upon that. And the
Yep.
other thing that has killed Boston in their last 3 games, and now they won one of them, they've missed 22 free throws,
Yeah.
Ross, in their
Yeah.
last 3 games. That's pathetic. I
That's a
mean, you
team
can't
that
do that at
shot, I
this level.
believe, 81% during the season,
Yeah. I
or
mean, that's
81% going into this series during the
yeah,
postseason as well. So yeah, that, those points add up. I mean, if you look at just the other night in game 5, if they make their average on free throws, that game's a lot closer going down the stretch.
right.
The turnovers that bother me that I'm seeing consistently from Boston in this series is me and you played high school basketball and we followed the game throughout its entire adult life. And we know about fundamentals in Boston is playing offensively right now. What they're doing is fundamentally not sound because they're what you just alluded to it. They're trying to take the ball to the hole, and it seems like they get inside, they get they get double teamed, or a help defense comes, and then they're trying to make that cross court pass for a 3-pointer or slot, or they're out of control trying to make a pass. And that's where a lot of these turnovers are happening. There's nothing wrong with driving and kicking, but it's got to be more of a high percentage pass, Doug. I mean, especially against a team like Golden State that defends the perimeter so well.
Right. And the other thing too is that Golden State, one of the things that they've done is they have crowded, that's the term, they've crowded the Boston players. So they're not always reaching for the ball, or they're not, it's not designed to be necessarily just really straight up tight defense. It's more of having guys in the area, and then when they make these errant passes, well, especially everything's going to go to the weak side more often than not.
Yep.
So it goes to the weak side. Well, the weak side defender is looking for that pass.
Yes.
And might not steal it every time, but is tipping the ball,
Yep.
which creates the turnover.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just,
or it's an errant pass that isn't conducive to a great look.
right. Or it's got too much air under it.
You want to hit a guy in that situation. You want to hit a guy where he's prepared to shoot, and you hit him right in the zone where he can just make the catch and put it up in a natural motion. And a lot of times when they do complete those types of passes, that's not the case, but we'll see. There's still, look, Boston's not going to lay down. Like I said, they're 3-0 in games they were facing elimination thus far. So we'll see what happens. And we've seen quite a turnaround in this series on a number of occasions where we think one team's in control, and it just seems to be a common theme, not only during the finals, but the conference finals as well. You like to see one of these games go down to the wire on occasion. It seems like all decisive margins. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, all right. So we touched upon a lot of that. Let's get to our baseball picks for Friday, June the 17th. Doug, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to stay right where I'm at. I'm going to talk about the Minnesota Twins paying a visit to the desert to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the Twins, they're not necessarily overly impressive. And for a good point to that point, they're only 6th in the American League in run differential. But yet, here they are. They've won 3 of their last 4 series, and the only one they lost was to the Yankees. So that's hardly a disgrace from that standpoint. Now, Arizona, last year they lost 110 games. They're nowhere near that bad. They're at 30 and 35, right now. So that's okay. They're not going to win the division. They're not going to make the playoffs, but there's some improvement. But there are some signs of things going a little bit south, Ross. In their last 5 series, they are 0-4-1. Okay. And they're 10th in the National League in run differential. Now, the scheduled starting pitchers for this matchup are Devin Smeltzer for the Twins and the venerable Madison Bumgarner for the Diamondbacks. Both are lefties. Both have given up really a few too many home runs and a few too many walks in this case. Now, neither team has been poor, though, against left-handed pitchers. The Twins are 13 and 9.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the Snakes are 9 and 9. Though I expect a close game, I'm looking at Minnesota here, and I see some small edges, starting pitching and bullpen to start with. the Diamondbacks, for whatever reason, they're in their June swoon again.
Yeah.
They're in their last 41 games, they are 8-33 in June. Okay, that's terrible, Ross. And I also, another reason I'm thinking about the Twins on this one, I found this little nugget. I really like this one because I think it's very applicable to their situation. And I think it happens with enough different teams, especially those that are pretty good with power hitting. The Twins are 7-1 on the road if they've gone 2 straight games without hitting a home run. And because Baumgartner is, I'm not saying he's not terrible in giving up a lot of home runs, but he's a little bit above average. And in those games, Ross, that I just mentioned, in those 8 contests, the Twins have won those by 3.6 runs per game. So I'm going to pass on the ho-hos, and I'm taking the Twinkies minus the 120 on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, they're the better team. Let's put it that way. Yep. Now, they also play in what I consider the worst, absolute worst division in baseball, which is the AL Central. Some will argue that point, but I feel strongly in that regard. So, yeah, I mean, when you have these matchups against teams like Arizona, and Smeltzer's not that bad in my opinion. He is vulnerable to give up some long balls, but like you said, so is Madison Bumgarner. And one thing I could say is Madison Bumgarner is not a shell of what he used to be, folks. So on occasion he'll throw a gem, but he has struggled at times this year. So yeah, I agree with that. So Minnesota minus 130, Doug, over Arizona, correct?
I had 120, but if you got 130.
Oh, 120. I'm sorry. No, yep. I don't have 130. It was my error. Minnesota minus 120 over Arizona. I'm going to take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals at the Boston Red Sox game. Intriguing matchup. 2 teams, not bad this year. I mean, Boston has really come around, like I alluded to earlier, 19-7 over their last 26. Yet the St. Louis Cardinals come up as a 130 money line road favorite right now at Boston. And again, folks, we're taping 24 hours in advance. Myself and Doug, the lines we give you are subject to change depending on when you view the video, but they will be graded. What we give you at the time of recording. Sometimes it works for us, other times against us. And also the total in this game is 10. And that's where I'm going to concentrate because I just think this is a very high total. For the 2 starting pitchers going here. Michael Wacha is the starter for the Boston Red Sox, and he's quietly having a very good year. And Adam Wainwright just continues to be a bulldog, giving you a lot of innings. And, it's almost like clockwork, 6-7 innings per start, only giving up a run or 2 on most occasions. But be specifically speaking, Wacha's 7-3 to the under this year in 10 starts with a 2.33 ERA. 3-1 to the under at Fenway Park with an 0.86 ERA. So he's pitched very well in the friendly confines of Fenway Park. And the Boston bullpen over the last 7, a very good 2.16 ERA and 1.00 WHIP as a staff. This is also a Red Sox team right now as we speak that's plus 110 in this game on the money line. And Boston this year, as an underdog of between plus 100 and plus 150, has gone 15-5 to the under this year. And also Adam Wainwright, I mentioned how well he still continues to pitch. 5-1 to the under on the road, Doug, with a 3.00 ERA. His last 3 starts, great form, a 2.14 ERA, and went 7 innings in each of those 3 starts. The St. Louis bullpen, like Boston's, also pitched well recently with a 2.05 ERA and 0.86 WHIP. And Adam Wainwright, when his money line or the Cardinals' money line is minus 100 to minus 150, and Wainwright is their starter, St. Louis has gone 15-4 to the under since the start of last year. Guess where I'm going? The St. Louis Cardinals and the Boston Red Sox to go under the total at Fenway Park on Friday, the 17th of June. And Doug Upstone likes the Minnesota Twins minus 120. And that's over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Doug, before we sign off, quick note how you're doing of late and where the folks can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me at Doc Sports and just go to the Doug Upstone page. That's me. And you can check everything out right now. And things are really going well, Ross, just across the board. NBA, I got to play for the Thursday night game, game 6. If you happen to see this video then, so that's available, 5-unit best bet, 59 and 34 run, 64%, over $7,800 worth of profit. So it's been a fantastic run in the NBA since late January. Major League Baseball turned it around, 17 and 10 run. Things are starting to pick up. Got a lot of things going well. And if I can just avoid, as Ross mentioned, those extra inning games, I'd have even a better record. So I'm looking just to continue on there. The NHL 21 and 13. We got some games coming. Got a game coming up Saturday, so that will be another interesting one. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a play on that one based on game 1. So we have that, and then some obscure stuff. USFL, okay, 6 and 3, okay, on my plays of the week. And in Canadian Football League, going back to last year, I won my opener in week 1 Canadian football, 11 and 6 run. So it's just a lot of happiness around here, Ross, when it comes to talking good things, and hey, ready to go, just making it happen. How about yourself, Ross? What else is going on with you?
It's going good, Doug. Thank you for asking. By the way, you don't have to watch Canadian football or the USFL. But when a guy is putting out numbers like he just touched upon, meaning Doug, folks, it's like investing in the stock market. You pick up the paper the next day and see how you're doing. So you don't have to watch the games. People who tell me, I don't watch those games. Well, does that mean you can't bet or invest? So anyway, 18 and 13 in Major League Baseball since May 30th. And that not bad. 58%, not great, but I don't give out big favorites. So the return on investment is going to be a lot better than most people who go 18 and 13 during that stretch. And Major League Baseball 10-star top plays. Those are my best bets. Anything denoted as a 10-star top play is equivalent of a best bet, folks. It's just my trademark. Major League Baseball 10-star top plays, 5-1 this year, 47 and 24 since the start of last season. That's good for 66%. And folks, I give you reasonably sized favorites, underdogs, run lines, and totals. You do not get big chalks from me. So as you can see, that 47 and 24 record is not me giving out minus 200 favorites. In the NBA, a modest 41 and 27 since April the 1st, good for 60%. And top plays overall, all sports. Right now, I am 36 and 17 with my last 53 10-star top plays in all sports. That's good for 68%. You can find me at rbwins.com, where I guarantee all single game and multi-game daily packages. You don't win, you don't make a profit. I credit your account back your exact purchase price. And also, folks, if you have not registered at the website, take a second to do so. I'll give you a $100 sign-up bonus you could use toward any future purchase or purchases you like. But do me a favor, folks, you have to give your email, and it has to be correct, or else you're not getting anything. First of all, you're not going to get the picks sent to you. And second of all, the system will shut you down, because we had too many people, unfortunately, that operated in unscrupulous fashion, and I had to make that change. Anyway, rbwins.com, docsports.com. Doug, have a fabulous weekend, my friend. And for all of you out there, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, take care, God bless, and thank you for watching, folks.